All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, May 14th, 2015. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Thursday. It is 53 degrees and partly cloudy here in upstate New York. We actually had a frost warning last night, and it got down in the 30s, if you can even believe that. I don't know, a little bit late in the year for a frost warning, but at least it looks like we didn't get any frost. All my plants are still looking perky. So today I'm actually in a little better mood than I was yesterday, which is a good thing because it always makes it miserable when I'm in a bad mood trying to do a show. Not much fun. Yesterday we spent some time talking about, actually we named it Vaccinate All Children Act, Cuba, Cuomo, and Crumpets. There's a good name for that one. We took a look at some of the things going on. The lung cancer vaccine that apparently, I keep wanting to call him Mario Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo went to Cuba to try to procure for Roswell Park to bring up here. Trying to think, did we look at robots yesterday? I don't think we did. That was 2 days ago. We looked at robots and artificial intelligence, and that's where we're going to get back on to today because there's all kinds of fun stuff to look at. But one thing I want to talk about before we get there is my experience again, my every 6 months going to the dentist with my kid and the battle that I have to deal with, and this was the worst of all yet. You know, we've been looking at medical tyranny, forced vaccines, suspicious new never before seen diseases that pop out of nowhere, and it is getting very bothersome to me because I'm seeing a pattern here. I mean, we've also discussed the coming Vaccinate All Adult standing order that we've heard about. This Vaccinate All Children bill is pretty disturbing as well. We had yesterday looked at number 2 in this proposed bill where your school nurse is going to be considered the authority, and they'll be able to decide whether or not your doctor who wrote a letter saying that getting a vaccination would be detrimental to your child's health, whether or not that doctor, quote unquote, conforms to the accepted standards of medical care. So let's leave that in the hands of a school nurse. Yep. Well, it's now happening in the dental world as well. So we go in there yesterday, and I've really had a big problem, especially since when I was a kid. My dad had good insurance. He worked in manufacturing, was in a union growing up. And you know how it went. I mean, you had pretty good medical insurance as well as good dental insurance. And when my sister and I were kids, I don't ever remember saying to my mom, "Mommy, my tooth really hurts. I need to go to the dentist," indicating that I had any type of big cavities, let's say. Yet, as an adult, both my sister and I have an entire mouth full of, well, not anymore because I've been having them taken out slowly, but full of amalgam fillings in every one of my molars, top and bottom, as well as my sister's. And like I said, if I would have had that many massive cavities in my mouth, like to take the entire center of the tooth out, I could guarantee you that I'd remember that at least somewhat. But he was the type of dentist that every time you went, A, you got X-rays from one of those big honking old X-ray machines, and B, said, whoop, we got to drill and fill. Now, a couple things that I have issue with. A, of course, my entire body was loaded with mercury, I'm sure, from the leaching of those fillings. B, as you get older, what happens is once they drill out the center of the tooth itself weakens and it ends up cracking. And once one of your molars crack, unless you take care of it right away, you're going to end up with a root canal. Thank God I haven't had to have any of those. But I do have like 3 or 4 crowns now, and crowns are pretty damn expensive. I think my mouth actually is worth more than my car right now. And it's not a bad thing. I can't even feel crowns. You can't see the difference. I got the porcelain crown, but Jesus, are they expensive? And this is all because of this dentist when I was a kid who was milking the dental insurance, utilizing my sister and myself as guinea pigs to make his fortune. Now, one of the other big issues, my dentist in particular, we've had it out now a couple times, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to him. And it's really a shame because I've been there for probably about 10 years, and he was pretty cool. He actually went to the University of Buffalo like I did, and we are about the same age. We actually knew some of the same people, but he's turned into quite an asshole, nickel and diming me because he's deciding he's charging more than the insurance will cover now for every procedure. And that's just irritating. I mean, you know how that is. It's irritating when your insurance should cover your cleaning and your x-ray that you've put off for 3 years because it was unnecessary. And then you still get a bill for like $49 in overage charges because he decided he wanted more money. But here's the thing. They have these new panoramic x-rays, and my dentist and I had many battles because here's my issue. Over your lifetime, I mean, one of the things that we have learned, if there was nothing else that you learned from the Fukushima debacle, disaster, travesty, whatever you want to call it, ongoing, forever affecting human and animal life on this planet, Fukushima, is that there is nobody, no healthcare professional, no regulatory agency, no group anywhere that is tracking your cumulative exposure to radiation over a lifetime. And one of the things that we've learned, if we've learned nothing else from Fukushima, is that actually two things. No amount of radiation is really safe, quote unquote safe. Radiation will damage genes and potentially cause mutations. But B, what was B? Because there was one idea that was in my head that just fleeted away, spread wings, and floated. The second thing about radiation, is that nobody is tracking any amount. And so how do you know what your total exposure is? So here's the thing. I've talked about this many times over different shows over the last 3 or 4 years, but I was a guinea pig. I believed in the medical establishment. I allowed them to lead me down all these paths with the promises of a cure. And all that I ever got out of it was getting sicker and no one having any answers. But there was one point in time when my autoimmune had gone full tilt, and I ended up with alopecia areata, autoimmune induced, as well as Graves' disease, which is autoimmune induced hyperthyroid, which then turned into hypothyroid later, which then mysteriously went away once I got all the garbage out of my diet. But one of the things that they did when I first had Graves' disease is they put me through this whole battery of tests. And one of the tests was what was called an uptake scan. And in that uptake scan, I had to go to the radiology division and sit in a room and drink this big goopy beaker of gray liquid, chunky material that would make anybody want to gag. And years later, I discover that this goopy, chunky material that I actually drank, which at the time I was pretty ignorant to many things, was radioactive iodine, which is one of the byproducts of, say, a nuclear disaster like at Fukushima, the iodine-131, that you got to be really careful of because, hey, your thyroid sucks it up like there's no tomorrow. But the reason they make you drink that is because then they put you under this big scanner that looks like a massive upside-down Hershey's Kiss for an hour to then trace how this iodine interacts and moves through your thyroid so they can get a good picture to see whether or not you have cancerous nodules in there. But years later, so this was an accepted treatment back then. I would have to say that was probably, let me think, that was probably in the late 90s, very, very early 2000s when that happened. And now if you take a look and start reading about radioactive iodine and uptake scans, you're going to discover that they don't do that anymore. They don't make people drink large glasses, beakers full of radioactive iodine. And you want to know why? Because they found that it causes salivary gland cancers. Gee, thank you very fucking much, medical establishment. But, so my dentist fights with me about x-rays and I refuse. You know what? I am very well in tune with my body. It's been many years of having medical issues that I've had to learn to fix myself because no one could help me. And when you get yourself off of all the medications, all the drugs, and you start eating healthy, you'll notice that you have a heightened awareness about your being and about your person. And if something is wrong, as long as you don't ignore it, you know something is wrong. So I could tell. I mean, I know my mouth very well. If I had a cavity, I would know I had a cavity. If I had a growth, I would know I had a growth. I don't need x-rays every 6 months. It's a waste, and I don't want to be exposed to radiation that nobody is tracking. So anyway, we have this argument, and the one day I spit that out at my dentist. I said, I want you to tell me, after all these crazy experiments they did on me, the CAT scans I had to do, the long x-rays after all the years of, deciding I had this, that, and the other thing. They would just send you for these batteries of tests. And how about the radioactive iodine? And he looks at me and he's like, oh, you did that? Well, okay. I said, who's to say, they always use the argument that, well, this one x-ray is very small amounts of radiation and that's not going to cause anything. Well, no, this time isn't. But how about the 782 other times plus this one time? How about that massive x-ray machine that we had back in 1972 that I got x-rays every 6 months with this cone right up next to my skin going, bam. Remember it actually made that noise. And I saw a glimmer in his eyes saying, well, okay, maybe we shouldn't do x-rays this time because if she ended up with cancer, maybe she could blame us for it. He didn't actually say that, but I saw the light bulb go on. But the last time I went in there, they literally forced me to get a Panorex x-ray, and that's that panoramic. They will no longer be able to treat me because this was their first excuse. If I ended up with some sort of growth in my jawbone or whatever, and they missed it, that maybe they'll be liable. And when I still argued, the dental assistant or whatever the hell she was told me that they are required. She actually told me this, and it was a fucking lie. They are required by law to scan me with this Panorex to ensure that I don't have some sort of cancer. Now, of course, it got ugly. There were people in the building, and I was being very loud as, oh, gee, you can't imagine. Right? Jules never loud or obnoxious. But it came to the point where I was being forced to get into this thing. And I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm going to do it. I was pissed. I was so fucking pissed. So I did it. I come home. I start searching like, since when are they doing cancer screenings with radiation? And I mean, okay, yes, mammograms, but hasn't it come out that, oh shit, maybe you shouldn't start getting mammograms at 35 or 40 like they recommended for me? Because it causes damage to the breast tissue and may actually not even give you false positives that then create all kinds of other issues, but it may actually cause mutations in the breast that would give you breast cancer. They're not recommending you go yearly anymore. Well, don't I go online and sure then shit, they fucking lied to me. There is no cancer screening for soft tissue like she told me, maybe in the bones, but not in soft tissue. Panorex cannot see soft tissue. So I was pretty pissed. The next time I went, I fucking gave it to my dentist. I was so angry. So get this. Anyway, so we go through this debate now with my kid's dentist, totally different pediatric dentist. And they've been on this thing since 5 years old that we got to get your kid into the x-ray machine. I'm like, no fucking way. You know what? My kid's teeth look beautiful. They're perfectly straight. I don't see any issues with them growing in. We do not need the x-ray at 5 years old. This is a pristine child. Why are we going to start exposing them? I mean, I've tried so hard over my child's short life to keep her away from as many toxins and radiation with Fukushima. Trust me. I mean, that was like, I lost it when Fukushima happened because thinking of my kid. that I am not willingly going to stick my kid into a fucking x-ray machine for no good medical reason. Well, they threatened me. Me and the nurse, quote unquote nurse at the dentist's office, had some hot discussions over the last few times, and she had even threatened the last time that they'd have to put a notation in her chart that I was neglectful of my child. I mean, can you even fucking believe that? I went livid. She was a short little fat thing that is sitting there getting all bossy with me. I was pretty angry. I'm like, look it, towering over her, and I'm short. I'm 5'4", so she couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall. And I'm like, look it, lady. You can't even tell me what the dosage is. I mean, I remember when I asked her what the dosage of radiation was for a set of bite wing x-rays. I mean, we thought not only over the bite wing, but they've been trying to stick her into that Panorex all this time. I said, you can't even tell me. When I asked her what the radiation dosage was, she went into the x-ray room and she's looking around. And then she looks at the transformer on the wall and she says, oh, it's 60 hertz. Now, if you know anything about electricity, you know that that is not the radiation dosage, okay? 60 hertz. I mean, absolutely clueless fucking bonehead who's trying to tell me some unnecessary medical procedure that I need to have done to my kid, yet you can't even talk to me intelligently because you don't know anything about it. I mean, I was insanely insane over that. So this last time, now at 8 years old, most of the, well, not most of the, I guess there's still 12 teeth to go and back, but all the front teeth have come out and grown in. Beautiful, again straight, no issues, no cavity, still part of the no cavity clan all this time. Gotten the name on the no cavity wall every visit. But I agreed reluctantly that this time, okay, we'll do bite wings, one set. So this was last visit. So we did that. We go in there yesterday now for the 6-month checkup. And it was very odd to me because normally it was a very busy office. Not quite sure what the issue was, but, you know, my paranoid mind believes that they probably cleared the schedule for the afternoon because they knew we were coming because I always make a stink and there's always people in there, mind you. And the nurse comes out and sits down with us in the waiting room and starts instructing me that new policy in the office because of insurance purposes and because even though they have parents sign a waiver who don't want the x-rays, especially the Panorex x-rays, parents have been suing dental offices and winning when there's an issue after the fact. And because of that fact, they will no longer treat patients who refuse to get Panorex x-rays. Now, when I went through this with myself and every 6-month battle with my daughter's dentist, I did some research into the Panorex x-ray. And one of the things that I had found out beforehand is that, A, the Panorex puts out 2 times as much, at least, radiation. And they were finding evidence that it potentially could cause meningomas, I think they're called, meningiomas, brain tumors, okay? And there are all kinds of dentists that are coming out now against this use of radiation wantonly by dentists who are just looking to pay the fucking bills and don't really give 2 shits about your child. And still, and I saw some great article by a dentist yesterday, because of course I was manic by the time I got home, stating exactly what I've been saying. There is no agency, no doctor, no group of doctors anywhere that is tracking your lifetime radiation dosage from medical procedures. Exactly what I've been saying. And because radiation is cumulative over a lifetime, that's pretty significant. So anyway, so we're talking about forced medical procedures with these fucking vaccinations, and now they're going to do it with x-rays. Put on a seatbelt, people. I even said to this woman, I said, you know, What is this? Is this not still a free country where I have a decision over my medical care and I have a decision over my religious beliefs and whether or not I believe in anything? I mean, I don't know when we became Nazi Germany. And I mean, I'm sure that they were glad that there was no one in the office, but it actually made me wonder if we weren't the first ones to get this speech, and that's why they didn't have a busy waiting room, is because there's a lot of parents out there who are like, fuck that shit. I don't need a Panorex x-ray. And one of the stories that I had found, that there was an oral surgeon, a very well-renowned oral surgeon, I don't remember his name, but he had put out a story in one of the big mainstream papers a few years ago stating that Panorex should only be used when children show that there is an orthodontic necessity, where their teeth are all crooked and they're going to need braces. They're going to need some sort of mega care on their teeth. But if there's nothing wrong with those teeth, you should not be exposing them to high levels of radiation. And this nurse, quote unquote nurse, that's what just gets me, is like these fucking people with minimal education to even give them a title are then put in these positions of power that go to their head, where now they're trying to tell me. Oh, and she even said the reason too is that parents aren't educated. I am sorry, honey, but I could guarantee you I could run circles around you. 60 hertz lady. It was the same chick too, who's telling me now that it's going to be forced Panorex if we want to continue to go there. But I don't know. I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, let me read the story that I brought up after I came home yesterday, being incensed over this. Dental x-rays linked to brain tumor. A study in the journal Cancer shows that people who have had dental x-rays are more likely to develop a type of brain tumor called a meningioma, MENINGIOMA, than those who have not. And even more surprising, they quote CNN. According to CNN Health, quote, the meningioma patients had more than a twofold increased likelihood of having ever experienced a dental x-ray test called a bite wing exam. Depending on the age at which the exams were done, those who had these exams on a yearly basis, so this is just the bite wing, or more often than on a yearly basis, were 1.4 to 1.9 times more likely to have a meningioma. Now, another thing that we learned studying Fukushima is that children are way more susceptible to radiation than adults because of their smaller size. So let's continue with this quote out of CNN. Panorex exams, which involve images of all of the teeth on one film, were also linked to meningioma risks. If study participants had a Panorex exam when they were younger than 10, they've been going after me for my kid since 5 years old to get her into this fucking machine that I'm sure he has to pay for. He's got some big bills for that newfangled technology since 5 years old. If study participants had Panorex exams when they were younger than 10 years old, their risk of meningioma went up 4.9 times. One of these around the head x-rays carries about as much as twice as much radiation as 4 bite wing x-rays. So there you go. Bam. It makes me so damn angry. It makes me so damn angry that these uneducated so-called medical professionals are making... Uh-oh, you guys lost audio? I didn't lose audio. All right, just listener loss. F5. That these so-called medical professionals are making these decisions about you and your child's health care that don't even have a fucking clue. None. I saw a story yesterday about a doctor out of the practice who had admitted that they gave vaccinations to their patients but had never read up on any of the ins and outs on how vaccines worked or the materials that were in them. They just did it because they were told they should do it. And it was good for the patient. I mean, come on. And then, of course, we find out about all the FDA fraud and bullshit and not redacting stories once they've been proven to be fraudulent. How can you trust any of this? Yet it's being jammed through now the House for this vaccinate all children bill. Soon it's going to be X-ray all children bill. Insert your nano chip all children bill to track you. Put your medical electronic health records chip in your arm because it's going to keep you safe. God damn it. This really is getting to the point where, I mean, people, we got to do something. I don't want these fucking medical procedures that nobody is looking at the long-term safety of any of this shit. There's no long-term studies on any of it. And you and me and our kids are the R&D line item budget that no longer has to be paid out by the corporations, which means shareholder benefits, cha-ching, and everybody makes money to your detriment. Wrong. Morally and ethically wrong. All right, I want to continue. So let's, I really didn't want to get on the radiation thing, but that pissed me off so bad. And now I got to go find another fucking dentist, not only for me, but for my kids, and ones that don't force procedures on you. And I mean, I went through this as a child, and it has affected me my entire adult lifetime. I mean, I'm probably going to end up with all kinds of crazy fucking cancers because of my dentist, who's no longer around. I actually looked that asshole up because I was going to give him a piece of my mind 30 years later, but I think he's dead. Whoops. Sorry, Charlie. I mean, that just, and how many other kids did he do that to? And how many people ended up with some sort of pharyngeal cancers, cancers of the throat, cancers of the mouth, cancer of the salivary gland, fucking brain cancer, because of what he did to pay for his fancy machines and put his kids through prep school? I mean, that just, it makes me so upset. And I mean, that's just one isolated personal case. How many times is that being repeated on a daily basis across the world? Here's another thing, actually. Let's kind of wiggle our way in. We're going to look at some poisons now. Good old Mickey D's. I don't know if anyone caught the story yesterday, but again, another Main Street outlet really surprised me. This is out of Yahoo News. We knew McDonald's food was poison, but wait till you hear this. McDonald's destroyed the gut bacteria of a college kid in 10 days. This came out May 12th, 2015. It's common knowledge that fast food isn't exactly healthy, but just how unhealthy is it? I mean, God, look at what happens when we put on our thinking caps and put a little bit of critical thinking into all the shit we're being told to believe. As soon as we start digging beyond the pretty picture on the surface, we find all kinds of horrifying things. So we better make sure we dumb everybody down. Or make you an ISIS terrorist. Da, 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 da. ISIS terrorists coming out from under every bed and out of every closet. According to Tim Spector, a professor of genetic epidemiology at King's College in London, McDonald's food is devastating to the human gut bacteria. He writes in a publication called The Conversation that eating that type of highly processed food can wreak total havoc on the healthy bacteria in a person's digestive system. Now, how much have we talked about the microbiome and our gut bacteria, and not only how important it is to your immune system, but now they're also finding to your mental health? Spector wanted to find out just how bad McDonald's is for the gut bacteria for his upcoming book called The Diet Myth. Spector had his son, a student at the University of Aberystwyth, eat only McDonald's food for 10 days straight. His son Tom was allowed to eat Big Macs, chicken nuggets, fries, and drink Coca-Cola. Throughout the experiment, Tom sent his stool samples out to be analyzed by different labs. Tom notes that he felt fine for the first 3 days, but he started to slowly go, quote unquote, downhill. He became lethargic, and after a week, his friends had said he had taken on a, quote, strange gray color, unquote. Now, I could tell you back in the days when I used to actually partake in McDonald's before I knew any better, every single time I ate that food, it gave me a horrible stomach ache, like bend over, hold your stomach, painful stomach ache. As for the lab results, they were shocking. Spector writes that Tom's gut bacteria were devastated. Over the 10 days, Tom lost nearly 1,400 types of bacteria species, or nearly 40% of his total variety. Even after 2 weeks of returning to a normal diet, the microbes in his gut did not recover. Spector notes that the loss of gut bacteria diversity is a universal sign of ill health. He adds that humans rely on the bacteria to produce much of our essential nutrients and vitamins. So there you go, people. I mean, this is an obviously independent. I don't know if he was paid by anyone, but he sounds like he was an author that used his kid as the sacrificial lamb to do some real research. And wow, were there some pretty damning results by that. All right, so now from there, I want to hop into, I don't know. Let's get into some DNA and artificial intelligence. There was actually a story that came out on the 11th, so 3 days ago, which I thought was kind of interesting. Poor people's DNA is declining in quality, scientists say. Study reveals how stressful upbringings damage genes. Now, when we look at the state of the world right now, I don't think there's anyone out there, at least people who are awake, who could deny the fact that the world is pretty damn stressful. And even those who aren't awake, I mean, put yourself into the rat race 9 to 5, trying to keep your job, trying to jump through hoops for some big corporation that doesn't give two shits about you, worried every day in your right to work state that maybe they'll just decide for no reason whatsoever that you don't have a job anymore because the bottom line isn't what it should be. Always worrying about shareholder profits. And then let's think about eugenics. I mean, with the Genome Project at the point that it is now, and being able to do like swab them, bag them, and tag them DNA, and I mean, they have now these mobile DNA units. We actually read about that a few months ago. Giving your DNA as part of the medical establishment is going to become commonplace. They're already looking for volunteers to put them into a database for future research. But don't think that nationalized healthcare, as well as law enforcement, right? Even for people who aren't convicted, I saw that they're looking for DNA samples. I don't know if that's a law yet, but they're really trying to push it. They want DNA from everybody. So if you then put on the eugenics hat and start thinking about, I don't know, Nazi Germany, blonde hair, blue eyes, and the perfect master race, and then you start thinking about chimeras and how they're going to fix all your problems with this new precision medicine fucking around with your genes, it really makes you wonder when you read a headline, poor people's DNA is declining in quality. Scientists say study reveals how stressful upbringing's damaged genes. Are we all going to become damaged goods in the future? Is that going to be the justification for termination? You're a damaged human. Your genes say so. You've experienced too much stress and poor living conditions. It says studies looked at the length of telomeres, which the telomeres are also one of the things that they've been looking at for the longevity live forever project that all those rich fuckers that are running these technology companies are working on. If you can keep the telomere ends of the DNA strands long, that means you'll be more youthful. Low-income residents of Detroit, ding, 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 first place where I predict they're going to release the RoboCops real time. Low-income residents in Detroit have shorter telomeres than the average. Telomere length predicts life expectancy and can be shortened by stress. Well, my telomeres must be pretty damn short then. Stress can leave damaging and lasting imprints on the genes of the urban poor. And I'll tell you what else. Stress is just very damaging. It always puts you into the fight and flight mode. And it puts you into adrenal failure, adrenal overload, and causes autoimmune diseases. It also definitely causes you to age. I could tell you that. I mean, if I go back just 4 years to photos of me before I started doing this network and dealing with all this shit, and I look at photos of me now, I'm like, holy shit. And having a kid, it aged me at least 10 years. This is according to a new study that claims poor people's DNA is declining in quality as well as a result of difficult upbringings. These results are based on the finding that people in disadvantaged environments have shorter telomeres, which are DNA sequences that generally shrink with age, than their advantaged peers. Well, shit, all the more reason to give the world to the rich people, huh? All for the savior of the human race. The study looked at telomeres of poor, lower middle class, black, white, and Mexican residents of Detroit. Telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of the strands of DNA called chromosomes, which house our genomes. In young humans, telomeres are about 8,000 to 10,000 nucleotides long, and they shorten with each cell division and as a result of stress. Previous research had found that telomere length can reliably predict life expectancy in humans. The study found that low-income residents of Detroit, no matter what their race, have shorter telomeres than the national average. Quote, there are effects of living in high poverty, racially segregated neighborhoods, Dr. Arlene Geronimus, a visiting scholar at the Stanford Center for Advanced Study, said in an interview with the HuffPost. Yes, the HuffPost with Ariana Huffington, rich lady. Within this group, how race, ethnicity, and income were associated with telomere length varied dramatically. All right, I'm going to drop this study into chat because this really isn't what I wanted to deal with, but that really caught me as surprising that they would do a study on how we are damaged people if we are not privileged, as evidenced by our damaged genomes. So now let's look a little bit at artificial intelligence. One step closer to artificial intelligence, scientists create cells that replicate the human brain processes. We actually looked a little bit at another story that talked about the same issue yesterday. Australian scientists have, for the very first time, developed an electronic long-term memory cell that mimics the work of a human brain. Researchers say the discovery is a big step toward creating a bionic brain. Researchers from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, our MIT, Yes, anything with MIT in it, you should run away screaming, have created the very first electronic multi state memory cell, which mirrors the brain's ability to simultaneously process and store multiple strands of information, according to the university's press release. And a lot of these universities in Australia are involved with what? Ding, 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 the Brain Project. This groundbreaking discovery was recently published in the Material Science Journal of Advanced Functional Materials. Like, this merging of computer science and biology is so wrong, people. It's the end of us, I'm telling you. There actually is a story that I'm going to read right toward the end, a new interview with Elon Musk, and I think actually it was from his book that he's working on and some private memos, but I'm going to tell you, it made my hair stand up visibly on my arms this morning while I was reading it. Anyway, back to the story. The device, which is 10,000 times thinner than a human hair, this bionic brain chip, is a, quote, vital step toward creating a bionic brain, says scientists. This is the closest we have come to creating a brain-like system with memory that learns and stores analog information and is quick at retrieving the stored information, said project leader and co-leader of the RMIT Functional Material and Microsystems Research Group, Dr. Sharef Siriam. The lead author of the study, Dr. Hussein Neely, said that this device is a major step in recreating the human brain. Hey, I think my brain is doing just fine. It really doesn't need any help. Thank you very much. I don't need bionic intervention. How long is it going to be before we now have forced brain upgrades? You know, to make you a better human. Because guess what? You, my friends, have a dysfunctional brain. Remember Obama's big push on mental health and putting mental health care professionals kind of in the limelight when the big Connecticut shooting happened at Sandy Hook? And he had said, you know, those pesky HIPAA records are in the way, and maybe our mental health professionals should be the ones making decisions as to whether or not you should be eligible to own a firearm. And then part of the SAFE Act for New York State, Part 2, which hasn't fully, I don't even know, gone into effect yet. I don't know, that's kind of in the wings here. Part of that SAFE Act was also to own a gun, you would have to go for a mental evaluation by a professional. I think it said every 5 years. I don't want some pseudoscience doctor who's evaluating my every brain tick, eye blink, hand movement for some hidden meaning as to the health of my brain. And then add DARPA and this whole brain project and all these universities and the National Institute of Health, this big global project that Obama put, I don't know if it was billions. Seems like he's throwing $1 billion here and $1 billion there. I think there were billions involved, at least on a grand scale, behind cracking all the mysteries of the brain. We've talked about this before, people. Thought crime. Thought crime is not eons away. Thought crime is right in our backyard, and it's coming to break into your house pretty soon. How long before you've been deemed a defective human, especially considering that last story that we read? People who live in poor economic conditions and have stress are damaged humans. All right, so now let's look at the solution. Oh, the solution will be the coming of the robots. Yes. Actually, one more step. One more step into Samsung. They've been in bed with Google for quite a long time, developing the Internet of Things and the connected home. Samsung announces, and remember, Google is in bed with Kurzweil and DARPA. Samsung and all of your, actually, there was a story I found when I did the playlist for the CIA and FBI a couple weeks ago. Google's in bed with, I think it said 14 of our alphabet agencies. I'll have to find that clip maybe for tomorrow. I didn't know there were 14. Samsung announces a new push into internet connected gadgets. Yes, the Internet of Things will save us all. Samsung wants to sell the digital brains that will go into billions of smart home appliances, industrial sensors, and other internet connected gadgets, even if those gadgets are not made by Samsung. At a technology conference Tuesday in San Francisco, the South Korean company unveiled a new line of tiny electronic components that combine low-power computer chips, transmitters, and software. Manufacturers can build the components into everything from televisions to parking meters to orthopedic shoes, and I'm sure there's going to be an implantable one in the not-so-distant future. Just my postulation, but I see the dotted line. This new Arctic, ARTIK, the new Arctic components are key to Samsung's goal of becoming a major player in the so-called Internet of Things, the tech industry's buzzword of the notion that all kinds of electronic devices can be connected over the Internet. This could be a $3 trillion industry in the next 5 years. Ding, ding, ding. We see the money carrots falling from the sky while selling out the human race. That was my commentary. This could be a $3 trillion industry in the next 5 years, analysts at the International Data Corp have estimated. Samsung is going after that market at a time when earnings from its core smartphone business have been sagging in the face of challenges from Apple and upstart Chinese phone makers. Samsung also makes other electronic components, TVs, refrigerators, and home appliances. In demonstration videos, Samsung showed Arctic components being used in motion sensor designed for orthopedic patients to wear on their shoes, allowing therapists to monitor their walking ability, and in devices that farmers can use to monitor moisture levels in the soil. Remember, we talked about that, all of the automation and technology that's going into farming as well. And we've talked about smart dust. This is just the next step forward. They will be monitoring everything everywhere. Okay, so now to a little bit of horror. There was a story that came out a few years ago, and I'm going to connect Skype here. There was a story that came out a few days ago in regards to this new cyborg, they're calling it, beetle. Now, you know that they've been experimenting with insects for a while. Of course, making insects into robots and saying that they're going to be used for search missions during a disaster. But remember the bullet points on the harvard.edu RoboBees website that not only talked about them helping during a disaster, but also helping farmers and, oh yes, bullet point surveillance. Remember also that military video that I refound again a few months ago that showed the new drones that they've been working on, DARPA, that are the size of insects that can fly into your house and surveil you and, oh, what, kill you. So now let's listen to this clip here. Let me connect. About the new Cyborg Robo Beetles to the rescue. This is going to bother you.
At a lab in Singapore, a researcher uses a joystick to control the movement of a giant beetle in flight. As the researcher moves his controller left and right, radio waves are sent to a wireless receiver fitted on the beetle's back, which activates nanowires to stimulate small muscles in its wings.
Stop! Nanowires. We looked at those nanowires, and there was a story that came out about DARPA and these nanowires that they can now insert into the brain to help, of course, paraplegic patients or people who have lost an arm, people who've had PTSD, and we're working on trying to erase and replace those memories. These nanowires, people, are very frightening. So they've inserted them into a brain of a beetle, and they are able to control this beetle's movement with what? A freaking joystick.
Depending on the signal, the beetle turns accordingly. From a scientific point of view, the experiment has proven a huge success. The scientists found that the muscle in question, which until now was only thought to control a beetle's ability to fold its wings, is actually key to the insect performing precise turns. From a practical point of view, it means that we are one step closer to remote-controlled cyborg beetles.
Stop. From a scientific point of view, it was a success. From a practical point of view, we are now one step closer to being able to remote control a living organism. Notice in here, he does not mention an ethical or a moral point of view at all. Mad fucking science gone mad.
Can search for survivors in disaster zones where it's too dangerous for humans to operate. Michel Maharbis from the University of California, Berkeley has been at the forefront of cyborg beetle research. For years, he's tried to answer a simple question.
What things would you have to strip out in terms of genes or in terms of nervous systems to be left with a chassis that is effectively a flyable chassis?
Stop. I was so horrified. I hate bugs and beetles. I mean, I don't want them crawling on me when I'm sleeping, but it's still a living creature. Did you hear what he said? How much would you have to strip out genes? What did he say? Hold on, back this up to Michelle. Let's hear what he says.
He's trying to answer a simple question.
What things would you have to strip out in terms of genes or in terms of nervous systems to be left?
In terms of genes and in terms of nervous systems, which are things that exist in all living organisms, to be left with what?
Left with a chassis that is effectively a flyable chassis.
To be left with a chassis. When I heard that, I started thinking of the 2045 project, putting brains into a fucking robot to then control them. I mean, what are we talking about here? Taking a living organism and turning it into a zombie fucking cyborg is what we're talking about, using nanowires into the living organism's brain. How is that ethical, even on an insect? And don't think if we're doing it on insects, probably next lab animals, if we haven't already, humans are next. I mean, they already are. They're working with nanowires with DARPA.
Right, I mean, that's kind of like, that's really the issue here, right? Because why is an insect not a flying robot? Well, because it's got stuff in there that you'd like to kind of knock out.
It's got stuff in there you'd like to knock out, like all the stuff that makes it alive. I mean, I was so horrified, and this guy's some youngster, and he's kind of giggling about it as they're interviewing him. This guy's a fucking psychopath. How can he not see that there are moral and ethical issues here, and how are they even allowing this research to go on at a public university, no less?
And then get yourself a chassis.
A chassis like you would find in a car.
Yeah, a chassis like you would find anywhere, like any human organism, any biological organism that apparently is going to become extinct very shortly.
But while cars are designed with the sole purpose of driving, evolution has hardwired beetles for multiple functions like mating and eating. All of these need to be taken into account when developing a remote-controlled beetle.
Yes, get rid of mating and eating. They will no longer reproduce or become useless eaters, and let's turn them into a chassis that we can then manipulate and control with a joystick.
The researchers have made progress over the years. They have proven that they can control the beetles with stimulation to both the brain and muscles. Maharbis thinks a combination of both techniques will probably be needed to create an ideal cyborg beetle.
At a short-term practical level, I think that we could stand to build controlled flyers at very small scales this way. In other words, using the best of electronics and the sort of best of the natural world.
And
I'm so disturbed by this. I can't even get over it.
Combination could prove to be the best tool for saving lives in the wake of future natural disasters.
At of course, they have to end it with, yes, it's to save lives. That's how they sell it every single time. All right, we got about 2 minutes left, so I got to hit on this story here about Elon Musk. Oh, find it quick, find it quick. Where is it? Find it quick. Come on. Before we run out of time, here it is. Google's accidental evil robot army even worries Elon Musk. Technology entrepreneur Elon Musk is worried that the internet giant Google could create an evil robot army bent on annihilating the human race, by accident. Elon Musk is a new authorized biography of the CEO of the space transport space company SpaceX and electric car manufacturer Tesla Motors. The book is written by American business columnist Ashley Vance. Musk and Google CEO Larry Page are friends, and though Musk believes that Page is well-meaning, he worries Google's intensified research into robotics could, quote, produce something evil by accident, the book says. Google has recently bought a number of robotics companies, including Boston Dynamics, famous for the four-legged animal, creepy robot with the creepy gaits, as well as the humanoid Atlas. One of Boston Dynamics' projects, Big Dog, was developed and funded by the military, as are many things for Boston Dynamics. But it is not the machines themselves, however, unsettling as they may look, that are worrying to Elon Musk. It is the artificial intelligence that Google might design to run the robots. Larry Page has publicly said that the creation of AI is possible. Elon Musk says, on the contrary, that AI is not only one of the biggest existential threats to humanity, but it is approaching fast. Quote, the risk of something seriously dangerous happening is in the 5-year time frame, 10 years at most. Musk wrote in a leaked private comment to an internet publication about the dangers of AI months ago. Please note that I am normally super pro technology and have never raised this issue until recent months. This is not a case of crying wolf about something I don't understand, wrote Musk. And guys, that's the end of that. It is Thursday night. Make sure you stick around. We have Mr. Chuck O'Celli. Actually, have with Kevin Blanche live up next. Mr. Chuck O'Celli live at 6. Behind the Woodshed at 8 p.m. Eastern. Double Crossed with Drew and Chuck at 10. And Anti-Media with SN